Hey everyone, it's Lisa. I'm so excited for today's guest, Missy Day. I just love Missy, and I know that you will too. Today's conversation is all about real money style. What's your story? Let's get started. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. We've never sat down and had a conversation like this before.
We never have. It's always been in passing. Oh, hey, how are you?
But I love you.
I love you too.
I know. It's Missy. It's Missy. We've been doing the thing in Vegas for a long time together. Mm-hmm. When did you start your business officially?
2013.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you were on the scene a little bit earlier than me. How long have you been in Vegas?
We moved here in 1993.
Okay. Cool.
So a while.
Yeah. You're technically locals. I mean, you're technically natives if you've been here that long. What is that now? 30 years, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the longest I've ever been anywhere.
Well, we're going to lean into your story about how you got here. For so many reasons, I invited you onto the show today. One, we were just in the same space and it clicked. I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't had Missy on the show yet. So I wanted to invite you on the show. But then, like I told you before the show this morning, is that I heard you speak at NABO. And you got really vulnerable, and I don't even exactly remember what the topic of it was, but I do remember your story so powerfully. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're amazing.
Well, thank you very much.
That
was I hadn't been sharing my story. I think that was the third time I had shared my story, kind of connected it to what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I remember the pink forks.
Yes.
That was the first time I did the pink fork thing, and so I've done that ever since. So whenever I do a talk or anything, they have pink forks so they can put them in the air. Because, as a speaker, it's nice to know when somebody's actually, resonating with what you're saying.
It's a lot easier than a clap that interrupts everything, too. So it's just hey, I'm with you. I hear you. Yeah, I love that. So I want to take the listener on your journey today because you are on a mission for people to tell their story. Before we start on that, on your actual story, will you introduce? I don't do formal introductions. I have my guests do their own introductions. So will you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Of course. I'm Missy Day, and I'm a success consultant, and I have my own business. I have for 10 years, and I do a lot of personal growth coaching for both men and women who just need some direction and encouragement and somebody to walk beside them. And I use to do corporate training, although I'm kind of backing out from that now because my focus is really on What's Your Story, which I founded 7 years ago. For the simple reason is the reason that I felt after I shared my story at a women's luncheon, I wanted everybody to have a platform where they could do that and experience what I experienced. And everybody has a story. Lots of people come to me and say, I don't have a story. And it's I bet you do. If you've been living at all, you have a story that needs to be told. Somebody's waiting to hear it.
I agree. And that's exactly why I started Real Money. As a financial expert, there's so many experts out there sharing great information. And for me, what was missing is the heart of why money matters. Mm-hmm. And it matters because we all have a story.
Right.
And it threads. I feel I believe that money is more of the fabric that weaves our lives together. It's always with us and a part of us, but it's not the whole story. Mm-hmm. And it's actually not the story.
Right.
Who we are, what we're doing with our lives. Financial results come and go, but it's the actual story of how did you get started? Where are you at today that I think that people learn and women ultimately learn the best by hearing that they're not alone.
Right.
And so what my belief is that there's someone listening. And for me, if it's only one, that is a win. Someone's going to hear your story today. They're going to hear that they're not alone and they're going to be motivated and inspired to do what they need to do in their lives. That's my belief.
Right. That's what I tell all our speakers. When we invite them to speak at What's Her Story, I always tell them, the main thing is it's not about you. It's about that person that's in the audience that needs hope or inspiration in that moment, and you're going to be the person to deliver that.
That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm. Okay, where can people find you before? Because I know I do this when I'm listening to podcasts. I want to hop on really quick and jump on Instagram or whatever. Where can people find you as they start listening to you today and your story?
So my website is missyday.com, and I'm Missy Day on Facebook and Miss Missy Day on Instagram.
Cool. Okay, so where did your life start?
I was born in Long Beach, California.
Okay.
to probably, my mom was young. She was 19, and she was married to my father, whom I've never met, mainly because her parents told her not to. So why wouldn't you? Everyone's saying, don't marry him. Well, of course I'm going to marry him. At 19. And she did, and she was not equipped to raise a child, and he left when I was 2 months old. So my grandfather went to visit me one day at my mom's, and I was very sick. And so he took me to the hospital, and so they said, you need to call in somebody because she's not going to make it. I was so sick. I had double pneumonia. I had a staph infection. So, and I made it. I was in the hospital, a long time, but the decision was made while I was in the hospital that obviously my mom, wasn't able to take care of me properly. So her mom and stepdad raised me, and I call him dad because he was the only dad that I knew. And thank God that he was part of the equation because I was born into the most dysfunctional family you could imagine. It was so crazy. And, and I looked at it as a child even, and I would look at this whole side of the family and say, something is not right because we've got all this chaos over here. And then over here is my dad who owns his own business, entrepreneur, and always telling me, you can be anybody you want to be when this whole side of the family is saying, you need to let the government take care of you like we do. And I'm like, wow, these are my choices. And so my grandmother, she was an alcoholic, and she also took a lot of pills and drugs. And so when my dad left her and I was with her alone, it got very complicated for me as a child because she wasn't capable of taking care of me either.
So just to make sure that I hear this right, you were born to a single mom, essentially, or your dad left when you were really young. And then your grandfather took you with his wife, your grandmother, and then he left.
Yes.
Okay.
He
and
left
how old were you?
I was like 6.
Okay.
And so I remember, at the time, I just thought that this was a normal, childhood. And, I had lots of toys and all those things. And I thought that's, what every kid had until the night that I heard them fighting. And I went down the hall and he came out with a suitcase. And I said, "Where are you going, Daddy?" And he said, "I'm sorry, Kit and I have to leave." So my grandmother, is like screaming and yelling and he's leaving us and all this. And so I remember I put my arms around his leg to keep him, to make him stay, because he was the only constant, normal person that I had in my life. And so I was just screaming and crying, and he was crying, and then he left. And I turned around, and my grandmother said to me, "You're the reason he left." So in my little mind, I'm thinking, okay, gee, I had a father, and he left. And now this person who was my world left. So immediately it's like, there's something wrong with me. It's me, right?
Yeah.
I'm the problem.
Before the age of 10, I talk about this in my world all the time, is that that's when those beliefs are instilled. Whether they're true or not, you made something up about that event. And typically kids, we make it up that it's us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened next?
Next, it was kind of like a whirlwind. We had to move out of, our house and into a smaller house. And then it started, my grandmother started drinking more and taking more prescription drugs. So she was out of it a lot and made her first attempt to kill herself when I was 8. And so she attempted through my life from about 8 to 17, try to kill herself about 9 times. And it was me who always had to call somebody, call my dad, call the ambulance, call somebody. And so it was just yet another thing of she's unhappy, must be my fault, I'm not doing something, right. So at 17, she drove her car off a freeway and she survived. I don't know how.
That's crazy.
But she did.
Wow.
So then she was put in for a evaluation hold. And then I moved out. I told my dad, I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm a kid. who lost their childhood because I was taking care of my grandmother, and I need some kind of normalcy in my life. And so I did. I moved out. And she didn't live long past that. They found out in the hospital that she was diabetic, which she didn't know, and she died of a diabetic coma. And so for me, it was, I was just like, wow, can I rewind and, have a do-over? Because life was just so different. It was peace and calm, and I, finished high school and graduated in 17. And I was just like, man, this would have been nice to have this, forever. But
what happened when your grandmother died? Where did you go? You moved out on your own? You started working?
No, I moved into my dad's house at 17.
Okay.
And then spent my senior year living with him and my stepmom, Millie. So it was like great, except for that at 14, I started drinking at 14. Because I needed a coping mechanism, right? And I was like, well, why not? Everybody else is, and the family drinks and takes drugs, and so let me do that too. So I did, and then 16, 17, 18, my girlfriend, my best friend, and I would spend most of our time in Hollywood at clubs. So we did the whole 70s club thing, drinking and everything else. And so by the time of 18, it was just like kind of tired.
Tired at 18. Time to settle down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had a friend who kept, telling me, you've got to, come to this church. And I wanted nothing to do with church because the family, were all about church. And I was like, it's not balancing out, right? You're going to church, but wow.
Yeah.
And so I wanted nothing to do with church. And she kept saying, I go to this church. It's called Calvary Chapel. I think you're going to like it. And I was
just watched this movie.
Jesus Revolution.
Yes.
So I did. And so mainly to get her to leave me alone, I said, fine, I will go to church with you. Will you leave me alone if I go? And she said, yes. And so she goes, it's Saturday night. And I said, Saturday night?
Church.
She said, what? She goes, well, it's their concert night. And I said, okay, there's a concert? What kind of place are you going to, And she goes, just trust me. And so I went in, and there was a band playing, and then Greg Laurie came out and shared his story. Well, the thing is that his story mirrored so much of my story of his alcoholic mother and basically raising himself. And I was like, well, this is kind of weird, that he's kind of like telling my story. And he said, so if you're tired and you're lost and you're searching for something and you're tired of searching in alcohol and drugs and sex and all that, come up here, and accept Christ. And I was just like, what is happening right now, And so we did, and so we went off to the side room, and Greg came in the room and prayed for all of us. And so it was like, I finally felt like finally somebody has saved me, because I spent my childhood just waiting for somebody, she's a kid, let's save her, let's get her out of this situation.
Right.
And I never really understood why my dad never, in my eyes, never made an attempt, to take me out of the situation. Yeah. And we had a conversation when I was older, and he said, you have to understand that I had no legal right to you at all. He goes, basically, technically, I was your step-grandfather.
No biological, yeah.
And he said, your mother and your grandmother said, absolutely not. She's not going to go live with you. Don't even try. And so he was like, I hope you understand how much it broke my heart to have to see you live, in that situation.
How long? What age were you when you had that conversation with him?
I was probably late 20s when I finally, got around to having that conversation.
Yeah, that takes a lot of courage. You are a courageous woman. My goodness. Okay, so let's thread money into this. Typically, what happens with alcohol and addiction and instability is that financially people are not stable. For you, what was your experience of money growing up before 18?
Well, my experience was because my dad had a very successful business, he was always, giving me money. And,
Gotcha.
He started the Dave Ramsey thing before there was Dave Ramsey. He would give me envelopes full of money every month, for like my phone and clothes and, whatever. And he would always tell me now when the money runs out of the envelopes, you're done for the month. Okay. Well, I would run out and he would just fill them again. So I had zero concept of money. I just thought, oh, well, when you need it, it just
Appears.
It arrives.
Gotcha. And then when did that shift for you? Or did it ever shift for you?
Well, yes, because when I moved to Oregon when I was 20, then it was like, oh, so I'm supposed to make money and make my own living. So that was an adjustment for me. My mom and I, she had lived in Oregon, so I moved to Oregon. She was living there. We reconciled.
Your biological mom.
My biological mom. Mm-hmm. And so it was more like friends than it was mother-daughter. She tried to create the mother-daughter relationship, and I couldn't.
Too late.
It was too late, for that. So my experience then was, oh, so this is like all on me, and this kind of sucks.
It super sucks when you realize that you're all on your own. Talking to you, whoever it is. We get it. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then what happened? So you realized that. Were you working in Oregon, living with your mom? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I was working, so I had a job. And then, so my plan was, because I flew back to California as often as I could because I really missed it. And the plan was to always return, and then I met my husband, Fred.
Hi, Fred. He's in the studio with us today.
And so we got married, and my main goal in getting married at the time was I wanted somebody that was stable and came from a stable family and was never going to leave because I had severe abandonment issues at this point. And so when my dad, I'll never forget, we were standing outside the doors before they opened. I'd walk down the aisle, and he said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I said, "No." And then the doors opened, and down I walked down the aisle.
How old were you?
Got married.
How young?
24.
Okay.
We got engaged when I was 23. And it was like surreal. The whole thing was surreal. It was like, oh, I'm getting married and I'm a bride and this is wonderful and I love Fred and he better not ever leave me. That was like the recurring thing, for me. Because still in there somewhere was the feeling that there is something wrong with me. That's why all these people are leaving.
Yeah, that was the belief that was instilled. Mm-hmm. So I can envision the 6-year-old girl holding onto her grandfather's leg, saying, "Don't leave, don't leave." Mm-hmm. And you created that experience with Fred.
Yes.
In some ways.
Exactly.
Did that work for Fred?
Probably not. I'll never forget when I was telling him what I was going to say for Nabo. And the thing that I forgot to say at Nabo was the fact we were still married. But he was like, he goes, "Wow." He's like, "Should we talk about that?" And I'm like, I don't think so at this point.
We're still married.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage to share that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, and the thing is like some people ask me sometimes of, well, why did you go down the aisle? Why did you get married? And I said, because I was looking for somebody that was going to be with me that wasn't going to leave. That was the only thing that was going through my head, at the time.
And you did. Mm-hmm. You did. He's still here. I knew you were still married, so it wasn't a missing link for me. But yeah, by the way, we're still married. So you get married at 24. Did you step into corporate America? I know you had some experience with corporate America, and we'll share that. But what was that? What was your 20s and 30s like?
So in my 20s, I worked for an insurance company, 2 different insurance companies. And then I started working first it was senior services in Oregon, and then which led me to senior services, where I was a social worker for almost 10 years. Mm. And that spoke to me so much of the taking care. You know, I had a caseload of 350 seniors
Wow.
that were either at home, getting home care, or in nursing homes or memory care. And I just remember thinking, this is like the best gig ever. I have all these grandmas and grandpas that are like normal people. And so it was, it filled a need, I think, in my own life that I needed to fill, as far as looking and seeing that there's normal families,
Yeah.
you know, that have loving grandparents, you know, and things like that. So I really love that. And I did that until we moved here. And the expectation was that it was going to be the same kind of loving environment for seniors that Oregon has, because Oregon pays for a seniors' care. If you can't afford it, you get to live in a nice facility. And so when I came here and interviewed, I was surprised and sad
Yeah.
that, you know, that this state really doesn't have a heart for seniors. And it's basically, if you can't afford to live here, you should live somewhere else, kind of a thing, you know?
That's true. That's true. Nevada still has a lot of room for growth. Definitely one of those areas. And that was in 1993 that you moved to Las Vegas.
Yes.
What was the reason you moved down to Vegas?
Oregon's beautiful, but I had so many allergies, which turned into asthma, and I was in the hospital a lot. So my pulmonary doctor was like, you really need to move, you know, somewhere else to drier, hot climate. So we looked around Palm Springs, Arizona, here, and we kept coming back to here and saying, you know what, let's just move here.
Okay. And it was booming in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot going on in the 90s in Vegas. What was Fred doing for work?
He's a plumber.
Cool. Okay. So looking at your 20s and 30s, 90, that was 30 years ago. So you were in your 30s when you moved down to Vegas.
35.
Okay. And things had stabilized in your relationship and in your marriage. How did that work out financially for you guys? Were you stable financially?
Yes, and I don't know how, because we had, you know, we moved down here and we were fine, and I had not a retirement package, but I cashed, you know, out a lot of my things from the state because I worked for the state, and then we moved down here, and my mom actually came down with us, and so we were all living in this cute little house that was, you know, leased by a friend of my dad's actually, and so. We just, you know, we came down here not thinking, people are like, well, what are you going to do? Do you have jobs? No, I don't know what we're going to do. We're just going. And so we thought, well, how hard could it be to get a job in a casino, right? Because isn't that where everyone works in Las Vegas? So we went on these interviews, and my mom, for some reason, thought she wanted to be in housekeeping. And I'm like, do you? Until the interview, and they said, you know, you have to clean some absorbent amount of rooms, you know, in a day. And she's like, yeah, I don't think so. And my interviews weren't going great either. And, you know, Fred was the first to get, you know, work in the plumbing industry. And then my mom got a really great job in an electrical company. And then I kind of like played around. Well, I actually went to work for an attorney that specialized in elder law because they were looking for somebody that knew the Medicaid system.
Yep.
And I said, that's me.
Yeah.
So I worked with him until he became a judge. And then I went to Kelly Services, and I was like, I don't know what I really want to do, but I don't fit into this mold anymore here in this state. So I went and did a lot of fun jobs through Kelly. It was a lot of fun. And then one of them was at Bank of America. And so I went to do a job with them. And I'd been there probably 2 weeks. And the supervisor came and said, you know, my director wants to talk to you. So I said, okay. So we went and talked, and she said, you're the only one that gets here early. And you come back from your break and lunch, and you leave when, you know, your work is done. She said, what's that all about?
How come you have your shit together?
And I said, well, that's because I was raised that way, and my dad has a really strong work ethic, and he passed that on to me, and that's what you do when you have a job. You're responsible. And she goes, well, we want to hire you. And I was like, oh, okay.
That's awesome. So you were working as a temp? Okay.
And then I stayed with, so I started as being her assistant and then became a project manager until one day she came in and she said, one of our managers quit and I think you'd make a great people manager and you're going to start tomorrow. And I was like, I like being in this office by myself, working on projects.
Yeah.
And she goes, yeah, you're going to start tomorrow and you have a team of 45.
Wow.
And I was just like, is this negotiable? She's like, nope, you brought to return items tomorrow. And so I did. And I had no clue what I was doing at all. Mm-hmm. And so I started reading John Maxwell books on leadership and I was like, and they had bets on me that I wouldn't last.
Actual bets.
Who's that I wouldn't last. The team.
Yeah.
My team.
Yeah.
So what I didn't know was that before me, there had been 5 other managers in a period of 2 years.
What bank was this? Can you say?
It was Bank of America.
Oh, you said that. Uh-huh. Okay. Bank of America.
And it was the back office. So the building that they had for a long time on Charleston was where I was working. And so I lasted. And I treated it as just like an extended family kind of a thing. I said, we're all going to do this together. Mm-hmm. And I said, you help me, and in return, we'll have a great working relationship. And I loved it.
Yeah.
And then, so then they were starting to downsize, and when you're in corporate, you kind of know when departments start leaving that it's like, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The whole thing's going to be shutting down pretty soon, right?
When was that? So you moved out to Vegas in 93. When did you start with Bank of America?
I was with them 8 years. 8 years.
Okay. So 8 years. So then things start to wind down. Mm-hmm. So you're in your mid-40s by then? Mm-hmm. Or early 40s? Okay. Yes.
So then, and I told myself, I don't want to do this kind of thing anymore. I'm kind of over, doing corporate managing people. Well, when I get a call from Citi, and they said, we're looking, for a production manager, and your name was recommended, and do you want to come in for an interview? And I'm like thinking, sure, I'll come and do the interview, but, I'm not going to do it. Mm-hmm. So I did the interview, and they called me, and she said, we'd like to make you an offer to come and work for us. So she said, is this number okay? And I said, no, actually it's not. And I just threw out some ridiculous number because I was like, because I thought for sure she would be awesome. Like, oh, I'm sorry, we can't do that. And she goes, I'm going to have to call you back. And so I said, okay. And I'll remember we were in Arizona. I don't remember why, but I was like taking all these calls and then she called back and she said, she goes, we'd like to offer you that job at your price. And I was just like, what do I say now?
Yeah, they here's your money.
Does that come with a car? So I was like, all right, okay. Some things you just, you're like, yeah, it's meant to be. Let's just go with it and see what happens. And so same thing, loved my team, learned a lot, grew a lot during that time because there was a lot of challenging things, going on in that department. And then again, here we are. Call center shuts down. Another piece shuts down. And they had told us, they said, this was in 2012. And going through the time of 2008, when they would tell us our stock dropped to 99 cents.
Wow.
And they're like, if it goes lower, the feds come in, they take over the bank, Federal Reserve. So if you come and there's locks on the doors, this is the number you call. And so we survived that. I can't imagine how, but we did. We lived through that. And they came and told us in 2012, they said, no matter what happens, we're never going to shut down the Vegas site because it's a backup site, for the Midwest. And you guys are so protective, blah, blah, blah. 6 months later, we all get called up to HR. And when you're a director and you get called up, all of us at the same time, it's not good news. And
I don't know that. I've never experienced that before. I can only imagine how scary that would be.
Yeah, they're like, corporate HR is up in the boardroom and all the directors need to go there now. And so we go there, and they're like, we're shutting down this site.
Yeah.
And they said, so here's the list, and we're going to shut it down in 3 stages, and here's the names, and you need to tell all your employees that they're out of a job, and this is the process, and call this number. And I was like, again, this is happening again. And that's when I decided, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to rely on somebody else, you know?
I do. Your story is a story that has happened over and over and over again over the last decade in our country, of directors, departments, not just in the banking industry. It's still happening.
Yes.
Tesla just laid off. Right? We're hearing this news over and over again. Knowing what you know now, what would you say to someone who's in the same situation?
To go backwards, if I could rewind, I would really try to determine what my passion is and do it myself and start my business a whole lot earlier than I did. Because there's still, sometimes I feel like, not that I'm saying it's never too late, because it never is until you're dead. You can do whatever you want until the day you die. But I wish I would have experienced having my own business and that freedom a lot sooner than I did, you know, in 2013. But that's, you know, that though all the things I learned during that time has certainly made a difference in my business and the way I do business and how I can relate to corporate people that are just done, you know, with that process. Then I remember sitting in the office, and I had told everybody that, you know, we were closing, and I said, what am I going to do now? And I said to myself, whatever you want. And my friend called me, and she said, I heard about Citi, and she goes, I think you should join the Maxwell team, get certified, do what you do, but do it on your own. And I was like, perfect, I'm in.
Yeah. Sometimes we need the universe to give us that shove. Did you have inklings before that layoff in particular that you knew you wanted to do coaching, or you knew you wanted to have your own business?
I knew that from that particular group, because for whatever reason, I just started coaching my team, and that wasn't done ever before. And I would have these, like, you know, things where, okay, on Mondays, you know, we're going to talk about this. And I started doing all those things while I was a manager. And I really enjoyed that piece. And I enjoyed the training part. And so then that's when I was like thinking, I can do this on my own.
Yeah. And you did very successfully. Can you share that part of your life? I want to get to some good stuff for our listeners, because there's some nuggets. Because Missy, you're so wise, and I know you have so many nuggets to throw to our audience. And your story, it's so important that someone goes like, oh my gosh, she gets it. She gets it. She gets what I'm going through today. It wasn't just 2008. It wasn't just 2010. It wasn't just 2012. We're seeing this at the corporate level massively today for so many different reasons. You made a decision to go out on your own. What happened?
Well, so it was like, it's really, for me, when I look back on it, it's like I was in some like fairy tale, you know, thing happening. And I went through the whole process and the certification program. And I just remember going to Orlando, Florida to get my certification and to meet John. And I was just like, this is not my life. What is happening? To be around 2,000 other like-minded people who were just starting their businesses and all excited and couldn't wait to go out and change the world. You know, I will always remember, like, I get goosies just thinking about it now. I will never forget that feeling. And, you know, and being able to meet him and then hear him talk about how we were going to do that. You know, this is the first day of life-changing experiences for you. And it has been, you know, ever since. Every time I sit down with a client and I see them step into their greatness and become what they were born to be, it's like, how lucky am I that I get to be a part of that journey?
Yeah, it is. It really is a privilege. And From all I mean, for however long I've known you, you make such a difference for people. And that was just God instilled that in you. That's who you get to be for people. And knowing that, seeing that journey, how did you and Fred navigate that? That's the biggest fear that my clients come to me for, is if I make this jump out of corporate America, how am I going to figure it out financially? How am I going to build my business? How am I going to invest in myself? How did you navigate those decisions?
I would say, well, probably I was lucky in the fact that we received incredible packages, when we left. So there was a considerable amount of money that to start my business with. Not everybody has that opportunity, but I wouldn't let that stop anyone. I mean, if I didn't have that opportunity of the packages and things like that, I would have still done it, because there was no way. You get to a place where you're just like, I'm not employable anymore.
Yes. I love that. Truth bomb. I'm not employable anymore. I do. That's so great. Hang on to that nugget. Like, remind yourself that if that's what you like, it's so true. Same thing. I left UNLV and I said, I am not going to be a great employee ever again. I'm really not. And every time I tried to step into that role again, I sucked at it. I don't want to be able to.
And there's little temptations. Like, sometimes I'll get like some pop up from LinkedIn or something, and so-and-so's looking for this, and I'll look at it and I'll like, oh, wow. That would be nice.
Yeah.
And then I sit down and I'm like thinking, really? Do you want to report to someone? Do you want to clock in and out?
No.
Do you want that as your life and not be able to go and do things during the day? And I'm like, never.
Nope. Next. Nope. Next. So you joined Maxwell's team, and I know you worked with some major brands. What was your journey like? Which you're still a John Maxwell coach, but you don't do it on the corporate level anymore.
Right.
Correct? You're actually moving out of that into more personal coaching.
Part. I still do executive coaching for executives that are in corporate or have their businesses, but not going in and doing a lot of the training, anymore part. So that part, I love that part. And so my very first client that I had was Microsoft. And it's like, well, where do you go from there?
I don't know. Where'd you go?
It just kept going on, and some of the times I look back and I think, how did I ever get, these clients? And I think the main thing is, I know that from coaching clients that I have, they think there's some, I have to act or do or have this, perfect website and do all the things. And that's the way I'm going to get them. And I have a hard time with that, because it's like, at the time when I started my business, I had the worst website you can imagine. And I think back on it now and it's like, oh, wow, that was mine. And even the name of my company, I didn't think it through at all. I just, and a passion for numeral 4 success. Well, my emails were getting blocked by corporate passion. The numeral 4 is an unlucky number in the Asian community. So I was just like, I can't say that I should have bombed if you're going to go by those, parameters. I should have gone nowhere quickly, but it's because you have to let you shine, right? Which is kind of like what I'm telling people now with What's Your Story. You have to be able to bring whole self, warts and all, into your business and be authentic, and people will be drawn to you because they know the difference between the manufactured wax figure that is out there that's trying to help people and then the real life person that's been through it and is actually somebody that can help me, makes a big difference. You don't have to be bright and shiny.
You don't. You just have to be yourself. What are those pieces of you that people fall in love with? In that respect, right? Because you're even in just the 40 minutes that we've been together, and for all the times that I've known you, you just show up as yourself. Like, I'm here. What, right? And it sounds like that's been you every step along the way of your life, that you're just you.
I would say more so in my 30s. I would say in my mid-20s to mid-30s, I tried to be what I thought everybody wanted me to be. I was a people pleaser, and it was exhausting. because, and I'll never forget, a friend of mine, Kathleen, who's been my friend ever since I worked with her at Bank of America, and she called me in her office one day. She goes, I don't know what this is, but this isn't you. She goes, I see bits and pieces of you when we go out and at night, or we go out for happy hours, with everything. And somehow this magical Missy comes out. And then during the day, it's like, where is she? What happened to her?
Yeah.
And I think because during that time, I was trying to fit into the mold of the church that Fred and his family went to. And I was like, this is not me. I am not Martha Stewart. I am not like oh, yeah, okay, here's your breakfast. Oh, I packed your lunch. Oh, here's dinner. Let's have a fun dessert. It's like, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I finally let that go and then let me kind of come out, it was like, yeah, you can't put that back in the box. That's not going to happen.
No. We were just having that conversation before you got here, or before we started the show. You were like, I'm going to dye my hair pink. And you and Jill are just like that. You and Jill and Jill's part, someone that you've done shows with. You do the 50 Shades of Blonde,
right?
Right? Mm-hmm. Where you're just like, fuck it. Mm-hmm. Let's be ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the first time that I went in, I said, I need pink hair. Do you? Yes, I do. I need pink hair.
Right now. Yeah. How have you held on to that throughout the course of your life? Once you made that decision, living authentically, what are ways? So I want to end the show with some nuggets to our listeners. And they know how to get a hold of you if they want to learn from you. Join your, you have mastermind groups. You've got ways that women specifically you work with men and women,
right?
Can learn from you. But what are the ways that you remind yourself to be authentic or hold on to who you are?
I would say, so I had a conversation actually this morning. One of my clients called me and she said, I just want to tell you, she goes, you're like this stealth ninja person. And I said, really? I said, what, tell me, let's talk about that. And she goes, do you remember the first time that we had a conversation and you were asking me, the questions of, do you think you could benefit from personal growth in your life? Do you think you could benefit from having accountability and focus and clarity? And I said, yes. She goes, but then you just stop and you sit there and you don't say anything else. And I'm sitting in this now. And she said, and then you did the same thing when she goes, she said, well, what's your pricing? And she goes, you just said the pricing is this for that. And then she goes, and then you just sat there. And she said, and what else was I supposed to say? But okay, do I send you the money now? Is that how that works?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we try to get in the way of our own selves and the conversation that's happening, and just, be you and say what it is. We don't have to gloss it up and put a bow on it and say, pretty please, would you like to buy this?
Totally.
Just be yourself. And if yourself is not a great seller, you don't have to sell. Just state the facts and be quiet and let the person, marinate in it for a minute.
Right. We say, let the silence do the heavy lifting. Mm-hmm. Let silence do the heavy lifting. In our lives, get quiet, listen to ourselves, be ourselves, and then just choose people that we love and that we can learn from.
Right.
Yeah.
And the best thing to remember for me, as I learned this the hard way, is that I'm not everyone's coach and everyone is not my client. And I can't be all things to all people. Mm-mm. And once you realize that and you focus on who your perfect fit is in anything in life, really, they appear, instead of going out and trying to chase people. When I first started my coaching business, I chased, and I unfortunately had clients that after I was done with their session, I would be just like, help me.
Yeah. Right. You learn from those, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do. And then you figure out who you are and the people that really resonate with you. Because it's really two ways. A lot of people think, oh, it's the coach and they make all the decisions, and then there's the client, and that's not it at all. I mean, I learn just as much from my clients as they do me, and I want it that way.
Yes.
It should be a back and forth thing.
I agree. You have as much to give and offer as do your clients. And that is your, that's one nugget for you watching this show today or listening to this show today, is that you have as much to offer as anyone else on this planet. And it's a dance.
It is.
And we just get to hang out and dance and figure it out together. Those are my favorite clients. I totally agree. Can we close the loop on something?
Sure.
So you have had such an incredible journey with your family. And my experience of you, even over the last 7 years that I've known you, is that things came full circle with your family. And somehow, I'm guessing, which is my question, how did you summon the courage and the forgiveness to heal those relationships, assuming that they were healed? In particular with your mom.
Are you going to make me cry? This is why I didn't wear
I'm
mascara.
crying too. It really does inspire me.
My mom and I really experienced, as she got older, a really great relationship. And we got to experience the mother-daughter relationship, especially when she was declining. And I knew that just a lot of things were going through my head. And it's like, do you take the time to dredge up? No, that's gone. You know what I mean? Enjoy the now. And there were parts, I would have to say, when she was in the hospital and the day that hospice took her off everything, where I felt incredible guilt. But then I felt incredible joy, because I was like, this is the woman that brought me into the world no matter what happened, right? She was young, and I get to be here to wish her well when she goes on to the other side.
Yeah.
And I think in those moments, you have to let go, and I saw her for who she was. And it's not like, I want to say it was a beautiful moment, because it was, heartbreaking, but I would have hated to have missed it. You know what I mean?
I do. That's so wise. I have so many women in my world who have a fragmented, not whole, interesting relationship with their moms. And to experience you have that journey with your mom, and to hear you say, at some point, just let it go. I think someone needed to hear that today.
Yeah, because, once they're gone, you don't want to spend your life trying to, bring things back. It's just, it was, and the same with my dad, even actually, when he started to decline, and, he told me, he said, I'm sorry. He goes, but I don't want you to think I'm leaving you. And because he knew that was big for me. And I said, I know. And I said, and I get to see you again someday. And I said, I understand now that you're not leaving me. And I said, and I want you to know that I don't think there's anything wrong with me anymore. And so we got to, hug and cry and everything. But it's important to realize that, and sometimes you have to embrace yourself and just say, you know what? I'm doing my best. And that's enough.
That's the journey. That's the journey, that I'm enough and I'm okay and I'm whole and complete and I love me.
Right.
Right. And that's the work of personal development, which is why I love it so much, is every person that comes onto the show, whether we talk about like money or not, our financial lives turn around, our whole lives turn around when we heal and when we accept responsibility and we say, I'm good. I'm good. And let's go make a difference in the world. And you do that so masterfully and so beautifully.
Lisa.
I really do. I look up to you. I love you. I'm crying.
Me too.
Yeah.
I just actually, so I paid forward something that you did for me with my mom. So Lisa is the best when it comes to ministering to people that are grieving or have had, loss. And So when my mom passed, she just hugged me for a long time and didn't even say a word. And that meant tell that all the time to people because that was so beautiful. Yesterday, I was talking to a friend of mine. She just lost her husband. And it's like, I don't know the words. There are the right words. There just isn't. And so I just hugged her a lot for a long time. I didn't say anything. And so she's left me a message. And she said, I wish more people would do what you did because there's no words to say. She goes, I just needed a hug.
That's it.
So thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I got all the hugs. Bring them in. Hugs are the best. Thank you for sharing your story today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing
the
your
world
heart.
of you. And I just love what you're doing. And you do the same thing of just having people share their stories because it can change lives.
Yeah. Someone's life is going to change today. That's my declaration.
I hope so.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for being here on Real Money. Thanks. Hopefully you had some tissues. We need some tissues. Missy is an amazing woman in Las Vegas and in the world. So if you want to follow her, where can they find you again?
At missyday.com or on Facebook, Missy Day, or Instagram, Miss Missy Day.
Cool. Yeah, she's got a great show that you do every now and then, but they can probably find it online, which is 50 Shades of Blonde.
50 Shades of Blonde. And then What's Your Story podcast is on Spotify and Amazon.
Cool. Cool. Thanks for being here, Missy.
Thank you, Lisa.
Come back next week for a brand new episode of Real Money.